right?
Yeah.
I mean, wow. And all right, so let's start with, well, here's the thing that's fascinating. There's a bunch of them, and we're going to bounce around a bit. So when you two hooked up, you came aboard as to produce it, and I introduced you two, and it was when you told me, or you told me, I don't remember, oh, we're directing it together. It made total sense, because for you, this was too personal to produce. You had to really get in, and you also had that connection with one another. But explain the ravine and all that, what that means to you. And I'm starting at, you can say anything you want.
I was going to say the reason why he became a director right away is because we were basically working as directors. We were on the phone like so many hours every day for every single day, for almost a year. I mean, but we decided to do this early on. But I mean, it was a no-brainer that this was just the relationship we should have.
I think what happened was so John had started to shoot interviews. He knew this was a documentary. I think once the story sort of went viral and people not only were interested in Vivian's photography, but in the story behind it, his story of discovery, her story, and who this woman was behind the photographs. He realized there was a documentary here, and he started to shoot interviews. Beyond that, I don't know that there was really a bigger plan for how to tell the story, what kind of a film this could be. And so when I got involved, thanks to a call from Jeff, John and I just really picked up the conversation right from there and just started to talk about, well, let's talk about the characters, let's talk about the people who knew Vivian. How did they know her? They knew her not as a photographer, they knew her as a nanny. That's interesting. There's a contradiction there. There's a double life. We can play with that. Let's talk about that. And John and I just kind of continue to tease out the themes that would eventually be the themes in the movie. And as for my own personal connection, I happen to have grown up in Highland Park, Illinois, which is where Vivian was a nanny in the north suburbs of Chicago. And literally playing in the ravines where Vivian would go with kids that she nannied for, and it was uncanny because at one point John sent me a bunch of Super 8 footage that Vivian had shot. It was Super 8 film of my elementary school. There was Mrs. Bergman, a teacher that I had in second grade, who was awful. She was rumored to have belted a kid to a chair. Strapped a kid to a chair using her belt. So there was a personal connection, and I also felt that I understood the world that Vivian was living in. John grew up in the western suburbs, on the west side of Chicago. Sorry, not in the suburbs, the west side of Chicago. And I grew up in this world.
And by the way, I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. So he was there, I was there, you were there.
Exactly, and so I felt like I understood the families that Vivian was a nanny for, even though we never had a nanny ourselves. I felt that I somehow understood this world that Vivian had been thrust into.
And you clearly did. And one thing that I thought was tremendous along the way, from the very beginning, was you would call me all the time with new discoveries. Like you were a detective, essentially. Really, you were.
Yeah, I would send you like photos of weird. I think I sent you a photo of her hair.
Yeah.
Like a lock of hair that I found in a box that she kept.
No, but you would tell me about the people that you met, and the people who there were a lot of people who wouldn't talk, and you were like, "Can you please?" And they didn't want to. But you were figuring this all out.
Well, this will probably come up in the Q&A, so I should address that, which was the family that didn't talk, which was the family that she nannied for that ended up taking care of her later in her life, that gave me all of the contents of the storage locker. The reason why they didn't talk, well, they did actually do an interview. I recorded it, everything. And then they contacted me. They're really happy with what I'm doing with her, by the way. And they just thought, you know, they described Vivian as being more of a mother than their own mother. So they thought that they were just not perfectly comfortable with being on camera talking about her private life. And so we respected that and didn't put them in the film. But we were just like, man, we really want to get them in there. So we tried to pull all these different strings. And just,
Would you tell the story of the milk truck? Just because it gives another
sure.
Level that.
Well, this is a story that they actually said, which was, you know, Vivian would take them to school, but she would basically make the milk truck drive them, and she would hold on to the back of the truck on the bumper, like the runner holding the sidebars with her like coat flapping in the wind. She would make the milkman drive them. It wasn't like an option. She just said, "You're going to take these kids." And another story similar to that, which was like, this is how she was. She was really interested in the Native Americans, and she thought they were wronged, and she visited them and took photos of them. There's a large number of photos from different reservations. But next door, there was a new family moving in, and there was some Native Americans doing the move, like they were the movers. And then she barges into the son's bathroom. He was in the bathtub, and says, "This is so-and-so, he's a Native American." He's like, okay. But she was all proud to present this, you know, this man she found very interesting to him, and he's just like, I didn't understand what the hell that was about. You know?
So what I'm going to do here, if you don't mind, if there's something that you want to say, is I'm going to take questions from them, because I think that's better. For right now. Yes, right there.
Did you, the curator, or
I'm going to repeat what you say. So.
The curator from the Museum of Modern Art, who wrote you that letter at the beginning, have you ever heard from that person yet?
All right, so even though you heard from him, let me just repeat it. The curator from the Museum of Modern Art, has John ever heard from him again?
No, I have not heard back. There was, the Museum of Modern Art is one example we put in the film, but there was basically every major institution was contacted. But no.
They didn't think that they dropped the ball.
Well, they didn't see the film yet.
They do now! They will! Oh, they will! That's always
They're
fun.
gonna see it. I don't know.
Success is the best revenge. Everyone, anything more than that's too much of your effort. Okay, who else? I can't, oh yeah, right there, hi.
I'm curious how many villages you had to look through to find that one tiny place with the steeples that matched.
How many villages did he look through before he found the steeple that matched? Yes.
I didn't know it was a village. I had no idea where this was in France by just looking endlessly for photos of French steeples. I don't know.
He didn't keep count, is basically what he's saying. He doesn't know how to be succinct about that. He didn't keep count. And I told you to. I said it's going to come up. You didn't listen. And you told him, but it was too late at that point. There was already a lot of steeples that he had looked at. Yeah, okay, yes.
Do you own her entire catalog of photos?
Do you own her entire catalog of photos?
I own 90% of it.
The good 90. Swear to God, the 10%. Yeah, right there.
Hey, thanks for coming and congratulations on your film. One of the themes I liked the most in the way you put it together was how she connected with people with perfect intimacy through the camera, but outside of it, not so much. But you never came out and said that as such, but it was very much there. So how did that emerge in your process, in your editing?
Did you hear that, or should I?
No, I think I can repeat the gist of it.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
So Vivian, she was a very private person. I think we have established that. But she had this way of being very intimate in her photography. She was able to get people to sort of open up in a number of her shots. I think while Vivian was private, there were details about her life, her past, that she didn't want to share with people. She wasn't an introvert. She wasn't a recluse. Vivian, very much the opposite. She was actually very chatty and talkative with people who she'd met. She was incredibly opinionated, and she had a great sense of humor. So she was actually quite extroverted if she liked you. If she didn't, she didn't give you the time of day. But there is that contradiction, obviously, that here is this person who's really leading a double life, keeping her true identity, which is as an artist. Vivian was an artist masquerading as a nanny. And she kept that identity very much private and shared it with really no one. So when she's out taking photographs of people, I think you really do see that her ability to connect with them. And certainly she had an empathy for people more on the margins, the disenfranchised, people sort of on the fringes of society, and she was able to somehow connect with them.
People don't know she was the set photographer for Good Times. So, who else? Yes.
Did you ever find out how the boxes wound up at the auction house?
Did you find out how the boxes got at the auction house?
Yeah, so the auction house buys contents of storages and many other things, and they bought her storage locker that went up for auction because she didn't pay the bills.
There was a previous one than the one you would go up to?
Yep. So one of the two lockers went for auction because she didn't pay the bills. The other one, when she died, the people that took care of her found the invoices or whatever and kept paying them, but they didn't know about the other one. So one of them went auctioned off. And, yeah.
There it is. Anyone else?
Over there.
Okay, right there. Go. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what else you were doing in your life throughout this process? And if you had any encouragement, whether it was emotional or financial, or what that supported you to kind of sustain the effort?
Okay. Yeah, I was coming off of being a realtor. I was a realtor for 5 years. And so when I was actually authoring a history book, which I mentioned in the film, and I stopped selling houses in 2008. I would just buy and sell stuff on eBay. I grew up in resale, so I was able to make ends meet doing that stuff. So buying and selling stuff, I had an eBay business or whatever. And I financed all of this stuff mainly through what savings I had.
John is an incredible. He's incredibly entrepreneurial. He's willing to take risks. I am more risk averse, so I kept my day job making TV shows.
And was anyone or anything encouraging to your wife?
Oh, my wife was, yeah. Well, yeah. She didn't, well. Yes.
Was she more encouraging or less encouraging than me?
Well, let's put it this way. Before she was famous, I was the crazy person because I was talking about these negatives to everybody. And everybody, including her, were like, what? Just leave us alone with these negatives. Like, I got it, you found these cool photos. Like, people were annoyed with me. And I was constantly scanning, when you start scanning her work and you see a couple of good images, you want to keep finding more. And so, I'd be up till hours in the morning without going to the bathroom because I wanted to keep going. It was addictive.
I can tell you this as someone who's married who makes crazy choices, that they generally think you're nuts. However, in my entire career, which has all been with my wife for the most part, this project, my support and my working with you is the only thing she's never questioned.
Well,
The only thing ever.
Wait. She supports me. She does.
No, I know her. She's lovely.
But I'm saying in the very beginning, which is what your question was, the very beginning, I was crazy for doing all this stuff and was spending all this money on an unknown photographer.
And by the way, it's worth mentioning that obviously a project like this, which took 4 years of John's life and 2.5 years of my life, the film, and we obviously don't do it alone. There were brilliant editors that we worked with, and we have, including many of the people here, producers that we worked with, and many friends who gave us great ideas, great notes, saw early cuts of the film, my wife included, and many of our friends are here who had just incredible insights because obviously, as we lived with the story, the people around you, they live with it too. So, so thanks to everyone who is here.
Anyone Sorry, yes.
So the letter that you wrote to the printer in France, was that never mailed?
The letter to the printer in France, was that ever mailed?
We don't know. Yeah, we really don't know. So we don't know if this was a letter that was sent and then not acted upon, or if it was if this is a copy of the letter, or if it's the original and was never sent. We don't know. But obviously, for us, this came to represent a clear signal that Vivian both knew that she was a talented artist and that she had the impulse to share her work with the world. And so this notion of the artist, which is very romantic, who makes their art for art's sake and never to be seen, and doesn't want it tainted by public consumption. For us, at least that it complicates that picture. Because I think a lot of people have wanted to say that about Vivian.
She used to go to Central Camera, didn't she?
Yeah.
To have stuff developed.
Yeah, she bought film from Central Camera and had it processed there. Well, look at the color prints.
The color
Yeah.
prints, okay. Anyone else? Yes. And then I'm going to you. There's lots of excitement. There, and then there. Go.
So you have all of these negatives, and the film itself shows a very, very small portion of work. What portion of the negatives of the undeveloped photos would you say is of that kind of quality?
What
portion of her work
negative-
is really good?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't have an exact answer, but I could say that at least, her good to bad ratio was way beyond the average photographer. The main reason that is
The
because she was
average professional
the average
photographer.
great photographer. Because she was very frugal, and so when she saw a photo, she wouldn't keep snapping and rolling the film along. She just waited until she had the shot. and
Which
make sure
is
she
the
had it.
great difference between shooting digitally and shooting with film.
Right,
Film is,
yeah.
especially someone like that.
Especially her, because
Yeah.
she didn't have much money.
And
she
so
also
she's
was
going to
very
be a
frugal.
lot of economy and thought is going into every shot,
Yeah.
as opposed to even forget a rangefinder camera in SLR. Someone's just holding their finger down is, you
Yeah,
know.
They figure the good shot is somewhere in there.
Somewhere buried in
For
there,
Vivian,
yeah.
she was waiting for that moment, and so
Yeah.
she would often take a single shot
The
of a
decisive
single
moment.
subject and then move on. And so
There's a lot of great shots. There's a lot. I mean, but there's a ton more that of course we didn't put in the film.
What's really great about this is the amount of work that we're going to see over time. You can't really put out a book a month, I know time-wise, but over a period of time, it's like, okay, Bresson's work is pretty much out there, but Vivian Maier, so much of her work is yet to be discovered. That's unbelievable. Question.
How did you get involved in this project? Because you said early on that you've been talking to Jeff. How did you guys?
How did I get involved in the project? I was in I have an apartment in Chicago. I'm wealthy. And I was
how many
watching.
bedrooms?
You don't have to answer.
3. Not that crazy, but enough to where, look, I got a lot of TV shows. All right. So, no,
Is
so
it
I
on the
was.
lake?
What's that?
Is it on the lake?
It's near. All right, so not right on, but like a half a block. So I'm in my apartment, and I'm by myself, and I'm watching the local. It was actually Chicago Tonight, maybe, this piece, and I don't want to call myself a photographer. I take pictures, and which nobody ever sees. I do my own version of Vivian Maier. You're not going to believe there's all these Larry David photos that are amazing. I saw this piece on the PBS, and I went online and saw there was like a website, and I contacted you, and we met, and you were having a great deal. You were banging your head against the wall for a lot of reasons. A, you had some producers that I told you get the fuck away from them. You were meeting with other people to direct, and as I got to know you, to me it became so obvious, excuse me for yelling, I get passionate, that you should direct, no doubt. And then I thought, well, I have to team up. I can't do this. I don't have the time. I need to team him up with somebody who will make this better, will lift him up. And so between my wife, who's worked with Charlie before, and Michael Moore, who I spoke to, who spoke so highly of you, we had dinner out here, and it went gangbusters, and you're like, I'm in, I love this. And then as they worked together, it became clear that this was a single vision coming from both of them. You were lifting up each other in ways. And really, my job as a producer on this was to stay out of their way. Go do your thing. Call me if you want. I'll call you and say, hey, knowing full well, like, oh, Jeff's calling. It's not going to be that kind of vibe. And then I showed it to IFC, who ended up buying it. And
but what you did was so huge for the film. Like, it made the film because, you know, teaming up with Charlie and IFC.
Yes, it's all
those
good.
Those two things alone are huge.
I know, huge. But the point is, you could have made a shitty movie, and I could have been an idiot. And then my wife would have turned. I told you not to. No, you were excited. You were excited. I have witnesses. You were excited. But the point being is that you have made a wonderful movie that I am so proud to be remotely associated with. And it's really, I mean, it's an extraordinary movie on so many levels. And also, one thing that I've never, at least for me, I've never witnessed, forget me being involved, I haven't witnessed the excitement for a documentary like this. I don't even know, you know? I mean, I hear about this all the time. Forget even people talking to me, I'm talking about it, just hear about it. You want me to wrap up? Yes. Now, 30 seconds, 2.5 minutes. You give me the
natural end.
All right, no, I'm kidding. No, but is there any? I just want to. Are you? By the way, I have questions for you guys that I'm not going to ask now because there's things that this is my first time seeing it with an audience, and there were some things that you. I'll give like one fascinating thing. Her with the red coat, and the red coat. That wasn't in there anymore. Or was that when it peed? You know what I mean? Like when she was with the animals being slaughtered in her red coat. And
That's in there.
Oh, it is in there. Okay, I peed during that period. Boy, if that was the most narcissistic viewer, think about that. I go to the bathroom. Well, then it didn't obviously happen. I was peeing. It didn't take place. Because I was like, why would you pull that? But
It happened, and the animals don't do so well.
Yes, I know. Is there any? Let me think of one more question. Yes, you.
I wondered. I think you mentioned that her mother in the village had a camera also, and I wonder if you know whether she was an avid photographer or anything interesting about that.
Yeah, is her mother?
Vivian's mother and from the village of Fence. No, I don't know. The only thing is that lab actually developed her mom's contact sheets. But they didn't tell me anything about.
And you didn't see the
contact ones.
sheets?
They didn't have any.
Mother
They didn't
didn't
have
have
copies. So.
Yeah.
But they remember her.
Yeah, okay. You're it, so I want you to announce. And for the last question of the
Yes.
evening, say that out loud.
For the last question of the evening, I think it's obvious that not only how this documentary was filmed, but the whole story of John and Vivian coming together is a miracle. And to just think about the odds of you buying that box at auction and then going back and getting more and not being thwarted by the volume of stuff. There must have been something that made you realize I have to follow through with this. You pushed through where a lot of people would have given up. So I'm wondering, what was that thing? A thought, a dream? Did Vivian spirit?
Can I say one thing? That is an awesome last question. I mean, that was like, holy shit, you rose to the That was awesome. Okay, so.
Good thing you didn't ask about the red coat. That would be terrible.
You know, well, here. So Vivian inspired me to become a photographer. That's how I'm a photographer now. That's the reason why I am a photographer. It was because her photos inspired me to go take photos like her. So I bought a Rolleiflex. This is a long story, I'll make it short. I bought a Rolleiflex and started doing the same style of her photos. And this is before she was online or famous or anything. And so I wanted to just put the rest of the archive back together, and so I started to buy the other work. And the other people that bought these boxes had the same opportunity as I had to notice what it was. But when you take any photographer's photos and look up into the light to see what it is, there's so much bad work in every photographer's archive. You don't really see that like, oh my God, this is great, until you start really getting into it deep, you know. And so it took a while. It was a long process, but being inspired and seeing that it was good work after I learned that it was good work, and putting all of it together, it was like, you know, it was a natural thing for me to keep going with it.
And I'll just toot his horn in a way that he won't necessarily do it. I agree with you that if the work had fallen into anyone else's hands, it might not have had the life that it's now having. It likely would not have. It would have been sold off or broken up, and certainly wouldn't have been handled with the dedication that John has shown. And it does make you wonder about all of the other great works of art that are lost because of that. And I think you know, we see a fraction of the incredible works of art that we human beings create. But thankfully, although Vivian never got to see the effect that her work would have during her lifetime, it is having an impact on people. It's moving people, and hopefully it will continue to have a life through this film, and obviously through the work that John's doing.
So Cinefamily just wants me to tell you they hope you'll stay for their screening of Need for Speed. Immediately following. How about a hand for Charlie Siskel and John Maloof? Thank you all very, very much.
There's a party afterward in the back.
Yeah, come on out back. We have drinks, we have quesadillas, made to your liking, obviously themed. And I'll see you guys out this way.
Made to my liking?
Yeah. And,
fun?
Thank you.
please help us clear the theater to let in for the next film. Thank you all very much.